That's the vault Seer mentioned. Whoever I'm supposed to find must be waiting there.
This is my third draft of trying to review Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, so I'm going to quickly list off all the things I liked about the game before I get into the nitty-gritty of all the things I didn't like. The story is good, the presentation is great, the level design is interesting, with caveats, and the puzzles are all very inventive. There, those are all the things that I liked about Jedi Fallen Order. You might notice that one core part of the experience that is missing is the combat. And I didn't like the combat. I had high hopes for it, as I've been a big fan of Respawn's work since before they were even called Respawn, and the combat in their games has always been fast, fluid, flowing, and fun. Every move you made in their previous games felt precise and satisfying, as if the character's on-screen actions were just an extension of your own movements. It essentially felt like you're wearing a second skin, whereas the combat in Fallen Order feels like you're trying to play a crane game with two broken arms. At no point did I feel like I became one with my character, and that his actions were one-to-one with my own. There were dozens of times where his responses to my button presses would register too slowly, be ignored, or just not correspond with what I wanted, and it led to many, many, many deaths, and almost a broken controller. Now, this would be only mildly infuriating if the game used a normal save and checkpoint system. Jank controls and cheap enemy placement can be placated somewhat if the repetition of dying isn't too laborious. However, someone decided that what Fallen Order really needed to be was more like a Soulsborne game. So they added in sparse checkpoints, respawning enemies, and limited healing. This is what broke the experience for me. You can have janky combat with forgiving difficulty, or you can have tight, precise combat and make it as unforgivable as you want. Soulsborns are the latter. Fallen Order is neither. It goes for tough enemies with aggressive attacks and a few hit kills, whilst giving the player a broken lock-on system and unresponsive commands. It is downright unbearable to play at times. When you go to attack an enemy, just for your attack to be too slow, and the enemy's attack is faster than the speed of sound, and then you press the button to heal, but the animation is too slow, so you get hit before your health is replenished, and then you die. And then a very funny thing happens after you die. The screen goes black, and in giant white letters you see the word respawn. And I know that it is referring to the player respawning so they can try again, but to me it really felt like a proclamation by the studio. You died, and who's the cause for your death? Respawn. It's like that bit in Spectre where Sword of Blofeld tells James Bond that he is the author of all of his pain, and then the loading takes forever, and then when you do finally get back into the game, you're more than likely going to have to plow through crowds of enemies and animals before eventually getting back to the dipstick that originally killed you. It wears you down rapidly. Compare this to something like Celeste, only because it's the game I decided to play directly after finishing Fallen Order, for some reason. In Celeste you die, everything goes black, and boom, you're back to the screen you died on, ready to try again instantly. No long load times, no retreading old ground, and most importantly, the death was more than likely a result of your own actions. That is a key difference with Challenge. If you make a mistake and you lose, that's fair. If the game makes a mistake and you lose, that's a big hot bowl of rage soup. There are a few other aspects of the game that I dislike that I will quickly touch on now. The game has a bad habit of placing enemies next to doorways just out of your line of sight, so you're guaranteed to get a whack and will just have to suck it up like the good little obedient player that you are. The lock-on system is inconsistent to the point that it was safer for me to just turn it off. The 3D map is nonsensical, just as it was in Doom 2016, and only served as further proof that 3D maps are garbage. The ancillary backstory and lore items weren't really interesting enough in the way they were presented. I imagine for budget and time reasons they couldn't do anything more elaborate, but having just an audio snippet and then a few sentences explaining what happened somehow felt more hollow than just having regular audio logs. Lastly, I want to touch on the topic of immersion, because there were a handful of decisions that went into Fallen Order that to me seem so out of place for a game that otherwise successfully immerses you in its world. Firstly, having the words premium content plastered all over a number of cosmetic items in-game. Why have this? I brought a standard edition from the PlayStation Store, so I was doubly confused upon seeing this, and ironically it just cheapened the whole experience. Secondly, having certain objects being highlighted with a red hue to show you that they can be interacted with, but just not yet. Fallen Order is Metroidvania-esque in the sense that you gain power-ups that allow you to open up more areas to explore as you progress. Fantastic. But why on earth did the game feel the need to explicitly show you things that you can't do anything with? It's just there to subliminally tell the player that they will be coming back later, and it's completely unnecessary. Lastly, in-game hints. This is a personal gripe of mine that I raged about previously in my Last of Us Part 2 video, but I hate when a game not so subtly says, "Hey, do you want a hint?" Which is just another way of saying, "You spent too long in this section and you're most likely a bit of a dummy, so here's some help." I know that probably isn't the intended message, but that's how it feels, and it's just another immersion-breaking aspect to this game. I think the thing Fallen Order has taught me is just how important the core of a game is. You can have the best looking presentation, the most amazing music, a mesmerizing story, or an infinite number of levels. It doesn't matter if the core of what the player does isn't fun. I know I'm in the minority with this one, and a lot of people did like Fallen Order, so maybe I'm just a lunatic. In either case, I still love Respawn, and I still applaud the team that made this game, because shipping a game, any game, is always difficult, especially a well-made game, which Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order is. It just wasn't for me.
I sealed the cargo door. You and me now.